Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we will complete the first part of the pre-algebra tutorial by learning how to divide fractions and solve proportions. Okay, so we'll be dividing fractions and solving proportions. These are two things that you've done before, but it's good to review and see how it looks when you do it in an algebra classroom with a little bit more rigor and certainly without a calculator. So let's clear our workspace and take a look at the problems that we have. In the first problem, we are asked to find the quotient of 1/3 and 9/5. So when we're working with division of fractions, it is useful to remember when we're dividing fractions. So as I write this out, when dividing fractions, multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, when dividing fractions, multiply by the reciprocal. Now, what the reciprocal is something we should probably define. So we will say if I have an example here, for example, if I have 4/5, the reciprocal of that, okay, the reciprocal of that is 5/4. Okay, and in general, if you have the fraction a over b, the reciprocal is b over a. So sometimes back in the day, this was called invert and multiply. I like to use the term reciprocal because it becomes important later when we're doing algebra. So the reciprocal of the number is what you basically do is you just flip the fraction. Okay. It's important to know that consider the reciprocal of 5. Okay, what's the reciprocal of 5? Well, remember that 5 can be written as 5/1. So its reciprocal, the reciprocal is 1/5. So the reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. Just remember that because that might come up as well. Not in the first problem, though. In the first problem, we're given two proper fractions, or one proper fraction, one improper fraction. We'll have to divide 1/3 by 9/5. So we are given 1/3 divided by 9/5. Okay, and what we have to do, remember, reciprocal. Remember to multiply by the reciprocal of 9/5 equals 5/9. Okay, so we need to know that the reciprocal is 5/9. So the answer, what we do here is we say 1/3 divided by 9/5 is equal to 1/3 times 5/9. And what does that equal? 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 9 is 27. So the quotient of 1/3 and 9/5 is 5/27. Now that's not the only way you can write this fractional division. You could have been given the problem like this: 1/3, and then you could have had a fraction bar divided by 9/5. It's the same problem. It's the same problem. these two things are equal to one another, just different ways of writing the same thing. And so what we'll put in our box is 5/27. Okay. I want to show number 26. So I want to show number 26 and number 25. So we'll make number 24 a you do. You do number 24. And let's look at number 25. For number 25, we have a mixed fraction divided by a proper fraction. So the first thing we have to do is convert this mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So take 3 1/2, right? And we have to convert this into an improper fraction. The way we do that is we multiply 2 times 3. So you multiply 2 times 3, and then you add that product to the numerator of the fraction. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7 over the denominator. So this is equal to 7 over 2. All right, so we needed to get that before we could even start, because we have 7 over 2 divided by -1 over 4. Okay, and we know that the reciprocal, and I'm going to show you a little bit of a notation here. The reciprocal, if I wanted to take the reciprocal of -1 over 4, okay, I could put it in parentheses and put this little exponent -1. It's telling me to take the reciprocal of -1 over 4. And what that is equal to, just flip the fraction, okay? That's equal to -4 over 1. Okay, so let me rewrite what I have. I've got 7 over 2 divided by -1 over 4 equals 7 over 2 times the reciprocal of -1 over 4, which is 4 over 1. -4 over 1. Don't forget the negative sign. So now we just multiply across. 7 times -4 is -28. And 2 times 1 is 2. And we have to ask ourselves, is this in the most reduced form? Well, no, because the factor 2 is a factor of 28 and 2 is a factor of 2, so we divide the top and the bottom by 2 by the greatest common factor, and we get -14 over 2 divided by 2 is 1, -14 over 1, and -14 over 1 is just equal to -14. Okay, so -14 is the quotient of 3 1/2 divided by -1/4. Okay, that is the quotient. Okay, so 7 divided by 1/2. You're going to do part of this. Okay, so you're going to do you do part of this. If you can do the whole thing by yourself, that's fine. I just want to do this one step for you, just like this. Just recall that 7 equals 7 over 1. So with that one little note, you should be able to do number 26. So you're going to do number 24 and number 26. Okay. Down to number 7, proportions. All right, proportions. The way most people coming into my class tend to know this is when they see proportion, they immediately think of a word, and that word is an animal. The word is an animal, and I'm not a very good artist by any stretch of the imagination, but what most people think of is butterfly. And the way I learned this was not butterfly. The way I learned it was I learned this following phrase: cross multiply and divide. Cross multiply and divide. So that's how I learned how to do it. Some people learn butterfly. And what does butterfly look like? Well, what people tend to do is they tend to draw this shape on their problem to make kind of a butterfly. And what it's telling you to do is to cross multiply, okay, across diagonally, and then divide by any number. So we'll cross multiply and divide, or perform butterfly. And so I've got here n times 3 equals 4 times 6. So let's simplify that down. Now, we don't typically write a variable in front of a constant. We typically write the constant in front of the variable. So I'll write 3n. Okay, remember the multiplication is understood, 3 times n equals 4 times 6, and 4 times 6 is 24. And so what I can do is divide now both sides, because I want to get rid of the 3. I can divide both sides by 3. And on the left, the 3's cancel out, and I'm left with n equals 24 divided by 3, which is 8. And so my answer that I put in a box is n equals 8. Okay, so you will do number 28. You do number 28. And I think I'll show one more just in case there was any confusion, and then you'll do number 30. So you do number 30 as well. So let's do number 29 real quick here. I've got 4/9 equals r over 6. Well, if I do my butterfly diagram here, cross multiply and divide, I've got 9 times r equals 4 times 6. Okay, so that's 9r. Remember, the multiplication is understood, equals 4 times 6, which is 24. Okay, so now what I'll do is divide both sides by 9 in order to get rid of the 9 on the left. And now what I've got is I've got r equals 24 over 9. Now, is this the most reduced form of the fraction? Well, who knows? Let's see. We can factor 24 and 9. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show the factor trees. What times what equals 24? Well, 2 times 12. And then 12 can be broken down into 3 times 4, and 4 can be broken down into 2 times 2. So those are the factors, the prime factors of 24. Right, we'll be looking at those. Now, I'm looking for the greatest common factor. So what are the factors of 9? 3 times 3. Those are both prime numbers. So those are my factors of 9. What's the greatest common factor? Well, the greatest common factor is just 3, right? So what I'm going to do is divide the numerator and the denominator by 3. Okay, and what I get in the numerator is I get 24 divided by 3 equals 8. And in the denominator, I get 9 divided by 3 equals 3. So 8/3 is the reduced form of the fraction that we get when we solve the proportion 4/9 equals r over 6. R is 8/3. We put this whole thing here in a box. Okay, so make sure you're showing me the most reduced form. This is most reduced form. Okay, it's also called irreducible. So 8/3 is irreducible. Most reduced form. Now you do number 30. Okay, so that's the tutorial here. It was a shorter video to finish this out, but you are left with to do 11/6 divided by 11/9. There's a clever trick there that I hope you see. When you flip 11/9 and you multiply, there's a simplification that can be done that will make your life a lot easier. You do 26, okay, 7 divided by 1/2, remembering that 7 is 7 over 1. And then cross multiply and divide here, butterfly number 28, p over 6 equals 4/10. And cross multiply and divide butterfly, b over 2 equals 7/10. And remember, on these proportions, you have to give your solution in the most reduced form.